Key, man. It's first of all, it's been an honor, man, building up a friendship and a relationship with you over the past couple of years, man, and always been a big supporter and fan of what you're doing and what you have built so far. But I want to start by talking about hoops because we both played and dealing with that transition into life after basketball. It could be pretty tough for a lot of athletes. So talk about your transition, how you kind of figured out what you wanted to do next, and how that whole experience was for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying likewise on the friendship. It's just been it's been a relief for me to be back in sports and just like reconnect with people who share the same mindset. And you were one of the first people I talked to in this industry, so it's been a lot of fun. And then just to know you beyond what you're doing professionally is super fun. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, on the professional side, probably like a lot of athletes, I didn't really come with much of a backup plan. I used to talk about this when I played, is like there's a lot of players that it's like a really tricky balance. And there's like a positive side and a shadow side to a lot of personalities. I always think of the guy who's just like an absolute gunner and scorer on a basketball team. It's like that bravado is what makes him great. It's also the same thing that'll like have him turn the ball over a lot and can be frustrating. And like it's a really, really delicate balance. I think the same goes for most athletes in general. It can be heightened in certain situations or not. But if you reach the pro level as an athlete, it means you spent like probably an unjustifiable amount of time in your life thinking about that thing, doing that thing. And probably like you, I mean, since I was probably in fifth grade, basketball was like the number one thing on my mind at all times. So, if you think about like that theory of 10,000 hours between playing, watching, thinking, talking, we probably put in our 10,000 hours by the time we were done with college and could be considered an expert in the game of basketball.
Yeah,
It's an amazing skill to have. And, both of us were fortunate to make a small career out of it. But the shadow side of that is like I never thought twice about what I wanted to do after. I went to school to be a gym teacher and coach. I figured I'd do that after my playing career. Um, I had a lot of people that just meant a lot to me from that world growing up that I looked up to, and I thought, well, that's how I'm going to change or impact the world. So I'll go teach kids to be healthy and fit. I'll go coach a team and give somebody the same opportunity that I had. Um, but like, I ended up playing for 5 years, was kind of in the fortunate position that I always said my playing career and playing overseas will never make you rich, but it
yeah,
can it can give you some peace of mind to go, I don't need to make rash decisions. And so when my career ended on a bad injury, a hip injury that just the surgery took me out, and I had the chance to reset. And so my transition was again, it was just good fortune. I moved back home to Madison, Wisconsin. I didn't know what else to do. That's where I spent off seasons.
hmm
And just through my network of friends, got connected with Alumni Ventures, which is still the organization I work for, and at the time was a much smaller, very scrappy organization. And I started as an unpaid intern, but I was interested and liked what they were doing, and always happy to share more about that particular journey. But it was really good fortune. And the thing I look back on it, and what it reminds me is that the way I got connected with that role is because it was a guy who knew me from my playing days in high school. And it's like a huge reminder that like people always say this, it's becomes a cliche, but it's like you are always building your resume. It's not, this is somebody who saw me when I was 15, 16 years old playing
yeah.
and appreciated parts of my character that came through on the basketball court and then said, "Hey, do you want to be an intern for our organization?" And it's launched the next decade of my career after playing. So like I keep that in mind a lot now of like you're always building your reputation and your network like that.
For sure, for sure. No, some really good insights there. Before we get into like what you're doing with alumni, sports and the fun that you guys are building, um, I want to talk about that mindset that you have as an athlete and how it serves you as an investor. Like, what are some of the lessons that you've been able to take away from basketball that has really kind of catapulted you into having success in venture capital and investing?
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe the amount of, you probably see it all the time, the amount of stuff that's written about like we want to hire athletes. Here's why we like athletes. They're competitive, they're good teammates, and all that stuff is true. For me, my personality was one that like I prided myself on being a good teammate. It meant a lot to me. I couldn't have been a track athlete. It's too individual. I needed to be on a team and I needed to help teammates. But really for me, like if I look back at my basketball career, it was largely about like discipline. Personal discipline is something I'm just like a big fan of.
Mhm.
And like frankly, it was grown out of like a little bit of a introverted behavior on my part. Like I'm not a super extroverted guy. So I built my habits around just going to the gym in my free time.
Yeah.
It was an easier way to spend time. But at the same time, I always built it around like I want to be, you hear the thing, be the first one in the last one out. I took that stuff really seriously as a kid. And so I think about it, like since the time I was again in fifth grade, when I would walk up to the park on my own, it was always first one in, last one out.
Hmm.
And that becomes a habit. The habit of like, if somebody else is getting 250 shots up, 500 shots up, I got to get 500 or 1,000 up.
Hmm.
And so it's that kind of stuff. It just gets baked into you. Like I probably couldn't even tell you anymore what the habits are, but it's just like I do enjoy the discipline and the competition. This is another aside, but like people always think competition is like diving on the floor in a game or getting fired up, and that's definitely part of competition. To me, I look at somebody like Kobe Bryant who had those qualities, dive on the floor, get fired up. But like the thing about Kobe that was so competitive is he was in the gym all the time. So it's the
Yeah.
preparation that makes you competitive. And I think the same way about venture, or frankly, any industry that I would have ended up in, it's preparation that makes you competitive. It's not like I show up in this meeting and I'm the loudest one in the room. It's all the hours you put in before and like all the hours in the gym. That's the parallel that's way more valuable to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think about when Kobe said, "Don't watch what I do; it's how I do it."
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that mentality, that preparation, that discipline that you can carry over to any career,
Yeah.
as he did with basketball, but also in his next career with storytelling and his
Yeah.
creative work. It was the process. So
Yeah.
I can totally agree with that.
I can't tell you like the skill of giving a shit is like
Mhm.
a real one where like so many people, even really good basketball players, they're good because there's a lot of people who are good because they're good. But the skill of actually caring is a real one too. And so I think like for anybody, it's like whatever your next job is, find the one that really resonates with you. I mean, I know your story was like you really love tech
Mhm.
and you found it like it was not easy when you were grinding hard on this stuff when I met you. And like it's the love and the giving of shit that pushes you through all that hard stuff. And so
Absolutely.
it's like more important to find the thing you really care about and give a shit about than it is to like find the career that looks cool or is glamorous and like I don't know, force yourself to do it. I was lucky to find something that's resonated with me. I've been really lucky to translate it into the sports world. But just showing up and caring is like a real skill and can separate you.
Absolutely, man. And speaking about what you're doing now, like obviously working in finance and investing, there's a whole different lingo,
Yeah.
terminology that you have to learn being in that sector. So how hard was that for you making that transition and basically having to start back from zero and learn this whole new industry and
Yeah.
adjust?
It's hard and people are really smart and all this stuff I've been saying about basketball, people were doing that for venture capital and finance. They were grinding away. So like to try and step in 7 to 10 years after they had a head start is like a hard thing. But I will always say, like you play in Japan,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Now, there's a language barrier, but you still speak the language of basketball in that sense. Like I
Yeah.
played, my first stop was in Germany. That team was coached mostly in English. My fourth year I played in Spain. That team was coached mostly in Spanish. So it's like if I can learn to play the game in a totally different language, I had a little translated because like basketball.
Mhm.
So like the main thing is a language difference. It's not like intellect, it's language and reps is really the hard part to translate. So it's like I just had to do as much as I could to supercharge it. I chose to go back and get my MBA to help with that, just to get like a basic finance language. I will never say that I'm like the best finance guy. I'm actually like I'm probably in the bottom half of the population, not the population, but the finance population on that,
Yeah.
right? There are people who run circles around me in modeling and that stuff, but I needed to know enough to be dangerous. And then, another thing, I look at it like film study. You just have to get the reps in, watching other people, trying to figure out what they're doing, asking questions, being around the right people. Like you said about Kobe, it's like the other one that I always think about is it's not practice makes perfect, it's perfect practice makes perfect. Maybe a little bit of an extreme statement, like practice is always helpful, but like I was very fortunate to be around smart people and just kind of hear their thought process. And so I'm always like, okay, what can I take away from that? But you have to catch up. I mean, this is just, it's a competitive industry. It's a really intellectual industry. You have to get the reps. And then, the thing I've relied on is you have to accentuate your superpowers. So even though I was behind in finance and investing in many ways, there were certain things that I knew I could do, like authentic networking and relationship building.
Mhm.
So let me rely on those until my other skills can catch up was kind of the playbook on that one.
I love that, man. And diving deeper into what you guys are doing with Alumni Ventures. Obviously, the fund as a whole is agnostic, industry agnostic, but
Yeah.
are focused on this particular vertical like sports tech. Can you kind of
Yep.
talk about the type of opportunities that you're most interested in or most kind of like bullish on in
Yeah.
today's world?
Yeah. So yeah, just the quick backstory is Alumni Ventures is a highly diversified fund. Actually, when I joined, I leaned away from sports. I thought it was like too obvious of a narrative. Oh, here comes Keaton. He's going to do sports stuff. Duh. And I kind of didn't want to do that. So I spent my first 3 years here like ignoring sports. And then all of a sudden the industry starts taking off. And like you were ahead of the curve, but like you've seen it. This industry in the last 2 years has gone wild
Yeah.
from a tech perspective. Um, and at a certain point, I just couldn't deny it. And actually, out of very good luck, my team actually asked me to to help launch our sports practice. So it was like any reluctant feelings I had, it was like, no, the boss says you're doing it, so you're going to do it. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, lucky me, right? Our firm, kind of what we're known for is being relatively high volume. We create large portfolios. That's our take on venture capital, is it's kind of you play the math of it a little bit. So large portfolios. We like diversification. That's why we've always been a diversified fund. But then when you start getting into industries like sports, what does diversification mean? That's different than saying we're going to do SaaS, hardware, healthcare, fintech. That's full diversification.
Yeah.
How do you diversify within sports? And another kind of legacy feature of our fund, because we were so diversified, we've always elected to be a co-investor. Like our point of view is the really good investors have really good outcomes. Why fight them for those outcomes instead of joining them?
Mhm.
And like the analogy I always make is when I played in Germany my first 2 years, I played with the MVP of the league. Why would I go against the MVP when the MVP can, I can ride his coattails and we'll go to the finals, right? Like it's a smart move.
Yeah.
So that's our perspective. The first thing I did when we launched our sports practice was I went out and I looked at the the big time sports investors. And that's different than like the big time VCs, Sequoia, Bessemer, Andreessen. They're not doing a ton of sports deals. But Will Ventures, Courtside, Elysian Park, KB Partners, Lead, those guys are doing sports deals. So I just went and looked at their portfolios and I was like, what are they looking at? And
Mhm.
if I can kind of like extract up a layer, what I saw is it kind of falls into five buckets. So I was doing sports performance, fan engagement, sports media, esports and gaming, and then emerging teams and leagues, which has been kind of an interesting popular one. But that also gets into like the PE side of the industry.
Yeah.
Those, there's some overlap between those, but like that generally covers the stuff that we look at. And then, we're not like thesis driven in the sense that I go, this is exactly what will win. Like the leads do a great job of that. And my job is to go like, I think I understand what this lead is going after. You know, do I trust them? Are they the best at this? Right. 76 Capital and Wayne's team, right? They're,
Yeah.
they're they're like the gaming experts. I'm gonna
Mhm.
follow Wayne into a gaming deal. Lance at KB Partners is into collectibles and memorabilia. I'm going to follow Lance into that industry. So that's kind of my job in this world. The thing that's been really cool for me is, and you experienced it as a player, you get insight into like all the performance stuff. They used it on you in college, they used it on you in the pros. Like, what were we doing to get better? And what we saw was the unscalable version that only pros had access to. And then like, now I'm doing this 10 years after my career and I'm seeing like the commercialized version. So that performance stuff is cool. What's impressed me is that, and I have to remember this industry is an entertainment industry. And at the end of the day, it's about eyeballs and engagement. And so I've actually spent more time in the fan engagement and media side than I have in like the performance side. And so it's been fun, it's been interesting, it's been a new skill to develop. You can still build it on the fluency of sports, but it's a different, the guys who run ESPN may not have played, but they're really good at what they do on the media side. So it's like you have to learn a little bit of a new fluency, but because it's built around sport and because people that have spent enough time around the game or other games inherently know some of this stuff, you
Yeah.
could translate it. So that's been the fun part. But I actually really like that part of the industry. And when I think about like being impactful, yeah, I want players to be healthy. I want youth athletes to be healthy. I want them to be optimized on the performance side, but I also want people around the world to be able to watch NBA games or unrivaled games or League One volleyball games. I want that media to be really great so that everybody can access it too. So that's been a really fun part of the industry that I'm excited about.
For sure. It was a lot there, but man, I want to touch on founder traits because I'm big on like intangibles and a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
when you're investing,
yeah.
especially in like early stage company, a lot is about the founder and the team. So what kind of character traits or things that you look for in a founder outside of I guess the actual product or company?
Yeah. You're right on. And you said it like a basketball player, it's intangibles. That's what I use that because that's what every coach tells you growing up. And like
Yeah.
that's not it's not usually the word people use in venture capital, but that's what it is to me. Look, I mean, ask 100 investors, they're going to give you 100 different answers because this is the most subjective part of the whole game is like, we could both look at the same founder and go like, I think he's got the intangibles. I don't. Okay. That's just what it is. But again, like it's been funny how I've revisited my basketball instincts on that point
Hmm.
because I thought like, who are the people I love to play with? And what teams was I on that had the most success? They usually had some really high performers like say NBA level talent, but it was also all the locker room stuff that pushed us over the top. The
Hmm.
camaraderie, the kind of like willingness to put team first, the reliability. Like you can have a really talented teammate, but if they're not showing up for practice or they're disruptive, it's actually worse for the team. And so I find myself looking for those same kind of things. And actually, like when I take a first call with a founder, of course, I'm asking product and, roadmap and economic questions. But in the background, my mind's always processing like the intangibles. That's really what I'm looking for in that first call. And what I'm trying to decipher is, do I think this person's a good teammate?
Hmm.
And that could be, if the analogy is sports, it could be from the player perspective, like, do we have a good point guard? But also from the coach perspective, because as a CEO, you're also like de facto coach.
Right.
And what were the great coaches to me? What were their characteristics? So I'm looking for both those quality sets. Um, but I'm looking for like good leadership, reliability, a passion and vision that's like tangible. Like my view is if somebody I'm talking to can't get me passionate about it, it's gonna be really hard for them to get somebody else and hire. And all this is about building team and talent. And so I'm looking for all these qualities that are, again, you call them pretty basic in a sports world. Like the people who succeed are they're passionate, they're reliable, they are obviously talented, they're charismatic. It's that kind of stuff that I really look for. That's like the secondary effect of it is I can build a good team. I can get myself surrounded with good people. I'm humble. I can put people in the right positions. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. And truth be told, like we all get it wrong part of the time in the same way that we all had teammates. Like you played overseas, there's people in and out of those teams all the time. You go, oh, this is going to be the guy who's going to push us over, or this guy's going to be a problem. It turns out he's the best teammates. Like we get it
Yeah.
wrong. But yeah, I find myself basically looking for people that I would want to play pickup with,
Hmm.
you
No,
know.
I love it, man. Yeah, for sure. You talked about the sectors that you're most interested in. Are there any particular verticals within sports tech that you think are under the radar, underhyped right now?
Um, Hard to say underhyped. Here's a thing I've been looking at a lot. In venture capital, conventional venture capital, we've opted for like scalability and like software metrics, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of become the gold standard. And I love that. I think it's got a place. The interesting thing in sports are like inherently a real life experience. And so there's a lot of software applications, right, across the board, across the industry. But from a venture perspective, some of the times I think people overlook like these in real life businesses. So like, they're kind of called like four wall businesses. You and I have talked about like a Cosm. Uh,
Yeah.
we're looking at one right now that's like it's like a social club concept built around sports. And it's like they don't scale the same way software does, but actually there's a massive like operational moat around those things, and the economics are strong enough that like you can make it work. And so I'm actually really interested in these things that are, and I see other firms doing this outside of sports, but like in real life, physical businesses, four wall businesses, I think they're really cool. And like you have to make the economics work from an investment perspective, but I think they're really great businesses if you can pull it off. So I think it's overlooked in the sense that like conventional venture doesn't look at it, but I actually think sports people are leading the way on it because you know that people want to have these experiences. So I think sports is gonna be kind of the leader in this space for a little bit.
Yeah, I've been saying for the past several months, man, like real estate, like brick and mortar, like this
Yeah.
360 fan experience where like
Yeah.
fans can come, where they can live, they can work, they can play and engage
Yep.
with like the team and the players. I think like that's the next big frontier in
Yeah.
adding technology, like technological integration with that and within
Yeah.
that. I think it's going to be a big revenue driver and evaluation driver for teams going forward for sure.
Absolutely. The other thing I think is like congregation, getting together. This is like tale as old as time, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, vacation when I was living overseas, I stopped at the Roman Colosseum and you're like, oh, they were doing this a few hundred years ago, a few thousand years ago, who knows, right? This stuff has always been happening. And so, like, why not invest in human behavior, which is like we like to be together, we like to socialize, we like to be tribal. Let's not be narrow-minded and say software is the only way to build. Let's think about the things that can facilitate human behavior, and those physical spaces are one of them.
hmm Absolutely, man. You talked about unrivaled, and obviously we're seeing this like influx of emerging leagues, really all over the world. Are there any leagues that you have like, are really bullish on to see a lot of upside in?
Yeah, so the big one that I'm obsessed with, and their team could tell you that I've tried every angle, and like it's been a really competitive round, but rightfully so, is love volleyball.
Yeah.
The reason is this, like I think Unrivaled's fantastic. Women's basketball especially is on a rocket ship right now. They're competing against an existing product, which is the WNBA. Now I think Unrivaled's going to do fantastic. What I love about love volleyball is they're not competing against an incumbent. There's been people who've come and gone on the pro volleyball scene in America, but like volleyball is a huge sport internationally.
hmm
And there hasn't been representation at the pro level. You go overseas, I remember playing in St. Petersburg, Russia, and like we came off the court from practice, and their women's volleyball team at Spartak was coming on the court after for practice. And it's like there's a pro women's volleyball team at Spartak St. Petersburg, and we don't have one in Chicago. That's
Yeah.
crazy to me. So like that's the league I've been most interested in. I just think at a product level, like it offers something the market really will love. And then additionally, their model's really clever in that they kind of take a larger, later stage PE kind of perspective, and that they're also managing youth clubs, and youth sports is just a big business. So I think that business is fantastic. I've been a big fan for a long time. The general qualities I look for are we call that segment of our business emerging teams and leagues. And the emerging to me is like either you're approaching a new sport altogether, there's a few of those out there, you're approaching a new geography. So volleyball in America is kind of, what they're doing, or you're approaching a new demographic. So like women's basketball is emerging where men's basketball has been well established. So that's kind of like it's like new product, new geography, new demographic are kind of the things that I'm like, does this hit one or multiple of those vectors to really blow up? It's going to be really hard to compete with I see football concepts. It's going to be really hard to compete with the NFL,
Yeah.
you know, so on down the list. So that's kind of the stuff I look for. And there's a lot of interesting stuff. I've been surprised with how many cool leagues and team structures are being built right now.
Yeah, man. Love League One volleyball is a really good league, and I think they have a ton of potential.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely bullish on them as well long term. Last couple questions before we wrap up, man. Um, Looking back on your basketball career, or even like going back to that transition into venture capital, what's one piece of advice that you wish you would have known before making that transition and getting into this industry?
I think a lot of people suffer from some kind of like imposter syndrome, and I'm certainly not immune to that. And like there was a part of me that kind of like hid and waited or waited for permission early in my transition. and it was out of a fear of saying something stupid or being perceived. There's some really smart people in tech and venture and in this whole ecosystem. And like, I didn't want to be seen as the dumb guy, right? It's easy to walk in the room at, 6'8", no, a basketball player, like certain perception comes with that. And I didn't want to prove people right that I was the dumb guy. Instead, I just kind of shut up, shut up and like let them make assumptions, but then try and prove them wrong.
Yeah.
But again, the shadow side of that is it comes with like this imposter syndrome. And what I wish I would have known is like there's a difference between trying to speak up and force your way into the room and being kind of assertive, and that can be useful. But actually, I think the better quality is curiosity. And so, like, if you're feeling a little behind, just approach things with like humility and curiosity, and actually, people really take to it. It gives you a ton of value because people will answer your questions, but it's like for the people in the industry, I think they see like a genuine curiosity and like a willingness to learn. And that's actually really, really powerful. You don't need to be the smartest. There's actually a benefit to not being the smartest.
Hmm.
As long as you leverage it with humility and you go, well, I'm not the smartest. Please help me learn. Like, I'm really interested and passionate about this. So, like, I guess the concise way of saying that is like, if you are feeling some kind of imposter syndrome or like, I'm not ready to be in this room, just flip it into like a genuine curiosity and start being a sponge because it will benefit you and it will ingratiate you with people. And they're going to like the number of people who've taken me under their wing in one way or another because instead of me trying to be something I'm not, I was just like, hey, can you help me with this?
Yeah.
Really helpful. Yeah.
That's really good insight. And then last question, if you had unlimited resources, and you had to start a sports related fund tomorrow, what would be your overall thesis and focus?
So we're kind of doing this here. It's a fun question, a good one to end on. But like the way I've been thinking about it is this. I can with 100% confidence say sports has gotten me every single opportunity in my life. The reason I have this job is because of sports at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And so I really look at sports as like the true gateway to what we're starting to call humans first. It's just like all these things that connect you, build community, can like allow you to congregate, share experiences. To me, sports is like the gateway to that. From, other people have concerts, music, something like that, but it's like for me, it's sports. And so what we're starting to build here in our evolution of it is we're going to call sports and humans first, where it's like rooted in sports, but it's like really what human experience can you derive from these things or work backwards? Like, how can technology facilitate something I do at a concert and something I do at a game? That's what I would build around is that, like, this is truly the gateway to like I tell people the two most humanizing things in my life are being an athlete and sharing that with a ton of friends and people throughout my life and being a parent and now being able to share that experience with people and go, oh, you have a kid, it's crazy, right? If those like there's a big industry around parenting. There's a big industry around sports and experience. And so that my perspective is like use sports as the gateway from a venture perspective to get to something much bigger. And the bigger thing is human beings have always wanted to be together. We're inherently a little competitive, so sports are a natural outlet. We're inherently tribal, so fandom is a natural outlet. Um, Use sports as a gateway to get to these bigger experiences. And the experiences like, how do I live out in the world as a human? These are the things I do.
I love it, man. Always a pleasure, bro. Lastly, can you
Yeah.
let people know where they can learn more about you and what you guys are doing at Alumni Ventures?
Yeah, I mean, you can find our website, social stuff. I don't run our social stuff. I'm actually pretty terrible at it, but like, I originally learned to Malcolm on LinkedIn and I realized the power of LinkedIn. So please always hit me up on LinkedIn. I try and be as responsive as I can on there. I really enjoy meeting people and talking to people about this industry.
My man. Appreciate you, Keaton.
Yeah, way to go, Malcolm.